had 9 road games moved to larger arenas last year, but just 4 so far for 2026. WNBA teams are moving more games to different arenas this upcoming season, but Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have significantly fewer of those games. The WNBA's regular season schedule announced Wednesday, including 19 games moved to different arenas, up from 15.
Last year, the Indiana Fever moved 9 of their away games to large NBA arenas just to fit the massive crowds coming to see Caitlin Clark. This year, that number has dropped to only 4 games. What's strange is that the league actually increased the total number of games played in big stadiums from 15 to 19. If the demand to see Clark is higher than ever, it makes no sense why the league is giving her team fewer chances to play on the biggest stages.
The Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, and Atlanta Dream each moved 1 game against Indiana last year, but none for the upcoming season. The New York Liberty, Portland Fire, Mercury, Valkyries, and Minnesota Lynx are already in NBA arenas, removing any need to move games for bigger crowds. Is part of this due to injuries? Well, they would like you to believe that, I think. They would like you to believe, oh, well, she got injured last year. We don't want to move. We don't want to commit to a bigger arena. God forbid.
The official reason for these scheduling changes doesn't really hold up. Teams claim they're playing it safe because of Caitlin Clark's injury last July, fearing she might miss games in these large arenas again. However, the numbers tell a different story. Even after it was clear she wouldn't be playing, fans still showed up and sold out those bigger venues. In fact, the Fever drew about 16,000 people per away game last year, which is 4,000 more than any other team in the league. Even though Clark only played in 3 of the 9 moved games, the stadium stayed full.
Have names like Renee Montgomery, part owner of the Atlanta Dream. Names like Sheila Johnson, part owner of the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson, the same person who threw a fit that Caitlin Clark was named Time Magazine's Woman Athlete of the Year. And she said, why give it to Caitlin Clark? Let's give it to the whole entire league. If you ask me, this is a subtle play from folks like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery. Because at the end of the season, they decreased the amount of Fever games that have been moved to bigger arenas. Yet in totality, they increased the league from 15 games to 19 games.
The faces behind the decisions. It's important to look at who is actually making these calls. In Atlanta, you have Renee Montgomery, a part owner of the Dream. Over in Washington, there's Sheila Johnson, who co-owns the Mystics. You might remember Sheila. She's the one who was publicly upset when Time Magazine named Caitlin Clark their Athlete of the Year, arguing that the honor should have gone to the whole league instead. Their actions this year are interesting. The Atlanta Dream moved 1 game to a bigger arena for Clark last year. This year, 0. The Washington Mystics also moved 1 game last season. This year, 0. The Connecticut Sun held a game at the massive TD Garden last season. This year, nothing is on the schedule. When you see the owners who are the most vocal about Clark getting too much credit are the same ones refusing to move games to bigger venues, it starts to look less like a safety precaution and more like a choice.
4 times this season. You see how massive the season was? You see how much of a success it was this year? And we only had Caitlin Clark. See, we don't really need her. I told you guys we were going to do this without her. Interesting. The decrease in moved Fever games comes after Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games last season. Clark appeared in just 3 of the 9 moved road games, including July 15th against the Connecticut Sun at TD Garden. Clark injured her groin in the 4th quarter of that game and missed the remainder of the season. The Fever remained the league's biggest attendance draw last year, averaging 15,884 fans for their road.
The real strategy. The league's choices become even more obvious when you look at other teams. Last season, the Chicago Sky and Dallas Wings each moved 2 games to bigger arenas. This year, they're only moving 1 each. Meanwhile, the league is clearly capable of moving games when they want to. The new team in Toronto has 5 games scheduled in different cities, including trips to Montreal and Vancouver to reach new fans. The WNBA is absolutely willing to switch venues to get bigger crowds. They're just being very selective about doing it for the Indiana Fever. The math tells the whole story. Astra's total moved games across the league, up from 15 to 19. Fever games in big arenas, down from 9 to 4. When you look at those numbers, it's hard to blame scheduling conflicts, or injury worries. It looks like a deliberate move to limit the spotlight on one specific team.
Front office sports. But teams could still change course before the WNBA regular season starts. I think that is likely. It's easier to say, oh, we're gonna show everybody that we know this league is good with or without Caitlin Clark. We're gonna prove it. But once you talk to your owner buddies and they say, look how much we made. I mean, Indiana Fever came to town. Look how much we're making, right? Once Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson talk to the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, talk to the owner of the Chicago Sky, and they say, hey, what was that gate looking like? Oh, damn. That's a lot of money.
Look at the 4 games that actually made the cut. July 5th against Vegas, and 3 games in August against the Sky, Toronto, and Dallas. Notice a pattern? These dates are all late in the season, long after the opening night excitement has faded. Last year, the league put 9 Fever games in big NBA arenas right at the start to catch the Caitlin Clark wave. This year, they're trying something different. They want to see if they can create buzz on their own early on, saving the big arena games for much later. But there is a huge factor everyone is missing. The league's labor deal, CBA, isn't finished yet, and there is a real chance the 2026 season might not even start on time. If you manage a massive arena, why would you save a date for a WNBA game that might get canceled? It makes much more sense to keep those dates open for a guaranteed moneymaker like a Taylor Swift or Luke Bryan concert. Basically, the arenas are playing it safe. They would rather wait and see if the league actually plays before committing. If the dates stay empty, they can always slide a Fever game in at the last minute, but they aren't willing to gamble on the WNBA right now.
Season against the Fever. The 2025 schedule was released 2 months earlier. The Dream announced in March that their game on May 22nd against Indiana would be moved to the State Farm home arena, home of the NBA's Hawks. The Wings announced a week later that they moved a game against the Fever to American Airlines Arena. A Dream spokesperson tells Front Office Sports that they are always exploring new opportunities. The 2026 WNBA season remains in jeopardy of not starting on time, as the league and its union have yet to come to terms on a new collective.
The wait and see game. History shows us that the schedule we see today isn't necessarily the one we'll have on opening night. Last year, several teams waited months after the initial schedule was released to move their Fever games to bigger arenas. For example, February, the Chicago Sky announced they were moving 2 games to the United Center. March, the Atlanta Dream and Dallas Wings both followed suit, moving games to NBA-sized arenas. When asked about these changes, a Fever spokesperson recently said they can't speak for other teams, but noted that venues could still change before the season officially starts. The real takeaway? Teams are likely waiting until the very last minute to see if they can afford to leave that kind of money on the table. Once the season gets closer and they see the ticket demand, expect more of these last-minute moves to bigger stadiums.
There's no CBA deal reached. If I'm an owner of an NBA arena, if I'm in charge of selecting what events gets put in these arenas, well, without a CBA deal reached, why would I want to start already Xing out dates with potential WNBA games when I can keep those dates open for when a Jonas Brothers come to town, when a Taylor Swift comes to town, when a Luke Bryan or whoever come to town? Why would I start Xing out these dates? I wouldn't. It's not smart. I want to keep those dates open as long as I possibly.
On one side, you have owners like Renee Montgomery and Sheila Johnson. They've been very vocal that the WNBA's success doesn't depend on just one person. Their message is clear. The league was already on the rise, and Caitlin Clark just happened to show up at the right time. For them, it's a matter of pride. They don't want the story of a league's entire history to be boiled down to the impact of a single rookie. But then, look at the other side. Owners of teams like the Las Vegas Aces or the Chicago Sky can show you exactly how much money they made when the Fever came to town last year. The numbers don't lie. When you move a game from a small 7,000-seat gym to a 20,000-seat NBA arena and sell every single ticket, that isn't just a small bonus. That is life-changing money for teams that have struggled to make a profit for years. It's the difference between barely getting by and actually thriving.
Keep those dates open for possible bigger events. And if nobody takes those dates, fine. Then we'll slide a couple Indiana Fever games in here. But until then, we're keeping these dates open. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I appreciate all the support. Like the video, let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, that would mean so much to me. See you next time, and as always, take it easy.
There's a clear tug-of-war happening between the story some owners want to tell and the financial reality of the business. The compromise? They've scheduled fewer Fever games in big arenas for the early part of the season. They're calling it strategic planning or injury caution, but it feels more like a test. The league is essentially checking to see if the WNBA can keep up its record-breaking attendance without relying so much on the Caitlin Clark effect. If the stands stay full without her being the main draw, they can say, see, the league has outgrown any single player. But if ticket sales and revenue start to slip, don't be surprised if they suddenly discover more arena openings in February or March, just like they did before. It's a safe bet for the owners, but it's also a risky one. Even when Clark was injured last year, the Fever still crushed everyone else in road attendance. They averaged nearly 16,000 fans per away game, while the next closest team was stuck at 11,000. People didn't just show up for one player. They showed up because the excitement was real. This year, the league is gambling that fans will move their focus to other things. The new Toronto team, the arrival of the Portland Fire, fresh rivalries, and a new crop of stars. Maybe it works. Maybe the casual fans who found the WNBA because of Clark are now permanent fans of the sport. But if they aren't, the league might learn the hard way that star power still drives the bus, and casual fans need a big reason to buy a ticket. Even the TV ratings show this. The league and Nielsen pointed to high viewership last year as proof of growth, but if you look at the top-rated games, the Fever still dominated. People were tuning in to see the team, hoping Clark would return, or just to see how they handled the pressure without her. This season, we're going to see what the WNBA's audience really looks like. By scheduling fewer Fever games in top-tier venues and time slots, the league is conducting a massive experiment. Are fans watching for the sport itself, or just for specific stars like Caitlin Clark? The league has set this up so they win regardless of the outcome. If ratings stay high, they can claim the league has officially arrived and no longer depends on one player. If ratings drop, they can blame the labor dispute, CBA, or other outside factors. Then, watch the quiet changes. Teams like the Washington Mystics and Connecticut Sun haven't scheduled big arenas for the Fever yet this year, but that could change fast. Once these owners look at their bank accounts and compare this year's projections to last year's massive profits, those scheduling conflicts and injury concerns will likely vanish. At the end of the day, professional sports is a business. Owners like Sheila Johnson and Renee Montgomery can talk about the league's collective growth and pride all they want, but they are also businesswomen. There's a world of difference between selling 7,000 tickets and selling 20,000. We already know the Caitlin Clark effect is real. The data proved that last year. The real question now is whether the league will actually embrace that success or if they'll let pride and internal politics get in the way of their own bank. Right now, the league is trying to have it both ways. They want to claim that their success isn't tied to any one player, yet they are still scheduling just enough Fever games in big venues to grab some of that extra cash. It's a middle ground that doesn't really satisfy anyone. Fans are frustrated by fewer chances to see Caitlin in person, and owners who want to maximize their earnings are essentially leaving money on the table. The league is using the new Toronto team as a shield. By moving 5 of Toronto's games to different cities, they can say, look, we're growing in new markets. This isn't just about one individual. But the real question remains, was the recent surge in interest just a Caitlin Clark spike that will eventually fade, or did she truly open the door to a new, permanent level of fandom? We're about to find out. The league has set up this season so they can claim victory no matter what happens. But keep a close eye on February and March. If early ticket sales aren't hitting the mark, watch how quickly those scheduling challenges disappear and more Fever games suddenly get moved to bigger arenas. The WNBA is betting that its growth was inevitable and that it doesn't need to lean on a single star to thrive. It's a bold long-term play for sustainability, but it's a gamble that could cost them millions this year just to prove a point. In the world of pro sports, expensive lessons often lead to very fast course corrections.